I do.
Good evening, everyone. So as Sean says, my name is Nathan. I live in Wakefield, originally from the Midlands. Been living in Yorkshire now for 15 years. Big Aston Villa fan, been supporting Villa since the early 90s. I'm looking forward to sharing my opinions and thoughts on the beautiful game that we all love.
And how do, folks? I'm Phil. I'm also from West Yorkshire, Yorkshire born and bred. So obviously, off the back of that, I support the greatest, classiest, biggest club in England, Arsenal. All the way, lifelong, ever since the late 80s, in fact. So yeah, I'll be giving you the right opinion as these guys give you an opinion. So should be good.
So as I said, we're going to be here every Monday going forward into the new season. Like I said, we're going to talk about the reaction from the previous weekend and also predictions for the next weekend's games, fixtures. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to talk about, a lot of stuff to cover, VR decisions, results, transfers, and of course, fantasy football, which I've touched upon. As you can see in the screen there, there's a code to enter our YouTube fantasy football league, ManGuard Rovers. So please feel free to get on board with that.
Come and help us topple the mighty Sean, who's looking to defend his title from last season. It's gone from being a company fantasy football league to now we're opening up to all you fellas, because we all had the joy, didn't we? We've met at work, all of us work in a warehouse team, had lots of time talking about football and thought, you know what, let's bring our eclectic views on football to the rest of the world and see what you guys think of our crazy takes. Sometimes crazy, sometimes controversial, that hopefully different, and give you something separate to have a look and have a think about after a weekend's football is what we're trying to do. So yes, we'll try and be honest, open, and hopefully just chat like three guys in a pub, although we're in more of a COVID pub at this point in time. But yeah, hopefully that's what we're trying to do, as Sean said, and try and get to you every week really, and give you our take on the thing that we all love, to be honest. So yeah, that's the drill, we think.
As Phil said, I am the reigning champion of fantasy football from last year, so it'd be nice to have a decent challenge again. We'll get more into last year.
If you can manage, come and have a go. Come and see whether you can beat us.
It was very close last year, so potential's there to be toppled, I suppose.
Let's hope so.
Okay, then. So let's go forward then. Let's have a look at what we're about and where we're wanting to be. I mean, obviously it's a brand new channel, so we're happy to receive feedback, comments. I'd love people to get involved and jump into the chat. Give us some advice. I'm new to this, as I think Phil and Nathan are as well. It's the first time I've ever been on YouTube, so it'd be good to get some feedback and some reaction. Obviously some talking points as well.
Definitely, we're learning by doing, and ideally what we want to do is try and engage with you folks and build a bit of a community as we go forward, like I say. And you want to hear our crazy views, but we also want to hear yours and your take on what we think. And yeah, tell us when you can tell us when you think we're wrong.
Yeah, you can agree with us, you can disagree with us, you can have your own opinions. It all doesn't matter. We all here for the same thing. We all love the beautiful game, and that's what makes it good, because we all share different opinions.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So seeing as we're here, we may as well jump straight into it and discuss the opening weekend this weekend. We've waited long enough now. It feels like it's been a long summer with very little action, a lot of talking points in terms of transfers. But rather than boring everyone with ifs and buts and who's here and who's not, let's jump straight into next weekend's results, predictions.
Well, I mean, it's going to be the beginning of Arsenal's domination. I'll start with that one for you. There you go. There's my controversial view number one. You've got to believe. I mean, we've all got to believe, right? We all go into game one thinking we're going to be champions. Well, maybe
so in my eyes, we all had decent seasons last season. We all finished relatively strong. Again, surely Arsenal
top six, didn't we? So
yeah, surely Arsenal challenging for the title.
So I think we've had probably one of our best off seasons ever at this point in time. So I think we've strengthened the squad. Look at what we suffered with last year, which is injuries. We've strengthened in key positions. We've got the much talked about striker, but that's interesting of itself because I'm a big Kai Havertz fan. I'm not going to lie. Saw him slot a wonderful goal in our last pre-season match on Saturday. But no, the new lad, let's face it, he's got a cracking celebration. Want to see plenty of that this season. Looking for a hat trick at Old Trafford on the first weekend. And I think we've had. It's been a topsy-turvy off-season, to be fair, adapting to the new strategies and stuff. But I think when you look at what we lacked last season, other than having the referees on side, you look what we lacked. We've added to it. We've strengthened the squad. We've got the striker. Still got the best defence in the country for the last 2 years. We've strengthened there as well. So I think there's no. I don't like the phrase "no excuses," but I think there's no excuses not to be challenging deep into the season. Let's go with that one. I'm not going to say we have to win it, but because I don't think we have to. I think we have to be challenging the top table all the way through the season. And I think we put all the tools in place to do that. So I'm expecting another, because I would say the last two have been top quality seasons. So I'm expecting another top quality season from Arsenal this season. And again, first or second. But I'll put my colours. I think we're going to finish first. I think Liverpool have had an absolutely unbelievable transfer window. But I think it's going to be an interesting challenge for them how to bed all those new players in. We saw some of that yesterday in the Community Shield. Some wonderful names on show, but they've still got to gel together. They're still players. They've still got to work out those partnerships, those combinations. And for me, allowing for my Arsenal bias, obviously, I think we've got a more settled squad for the newer players to come into, a more settled system. And I think overall, in the course of the season, I think that will help us. I think, Man City going through a lot of change, Chelsea going through a lot of change. I think all four of those teams have super strong squads, are in fantastic positions. It's going to be a hell of a ding dong between them. But I think having the most settled footprint and having the best defence, I'll go back to again for a number of years now. I think that puts Arsenal in a great place to certainly lead the challenge to try and take the title back off Liverpool. Really, so that's where I'm at with it in terms of our off season and where I think we're going this year. But probably slightly more interesting viewpoints from you two, really, because both of you, I think we talked about when we were planning the channel and talking at the end of last season.
We'll come on to me in a minute. We don't need to spend all night depressing everyone. But yourself, Nathan, what do you take from pre-season? What do you take going into the new season?
So, I've said this many times. Pre-season for me, as long as you're not getting a consistent run of bad results, is nothing more than match fitness. Villa's pre-season has been a little bit topsy-turvy. We've had some good results, like yesterday we played Villarreal and won 2-0, but the night before got beat 3-1 by Marseille. We beat Roma 4-0. And then we've had some playing American teams where we've been taking the lead and conceding, but we've had two very different teams at the beginning of the first half and then obviously at the start of the second half. What is interesting for me as a Villa fan, which I'm really pleased to see, is Ollie Watkins has been in very good form this pre-season. So I think he's got 4 or 5 goals, and I'm very hopeful that he's going to take this form into the start of the new season, because I believe last season he didn't. So there's a couple of players that I thought that maybe wouldn't be making an appearance at Villa this season, but I think they may have a shout. So just to name one, and Villa fans, if they're on there, will agree with me, Emi Buendia, I think, has been fantastic this summer. Obviously, he got loaned out to Bayer Leverkusen last season, and I think that some Villa fans thought he was finished. But maybe he's one of these that can come in, show Unai Emery that he can work hard and he deserves a spot in the squad. So the signings wise, we haven't had as much as what we've had before. We've signed a goalkeeper and an attacking player. Guessand and Bezo is the goalkeeper. But what we still have is a very good squad. I think a lot of people, from the outside looking and say, oh, Villa they've not maybe invested as heavily as sort of the top 4, top 5. But we have that team. We still have the spine of the squad. We still got Emi Martinez. We've still got Ezri Konsa. We've still got John McGinn. We've still got Ollie Watkins. These are the players that for the last 4 or 5 years on a consistent basis have seen us, get to the heights of where we are. So I'm looking forward to next season. Do I think, if you're asking me, are we Champions League contenders? I really would like us to be, but I'm looking for us to go further in the Europa League and go on and win it, because I do believe that we have the squad capable of doing it. I look at last season, no disrespect to Tottenham and Man United, but if they can get all the way to the final, there is no reason why we shouldn't do that as well. So, but I'm very optimistic. I think a lot of top pundits have, like, they're saying they're worried about Villa or not. I'm not worried. While Unai Emery is in charge of Villa, I have complete faith in the man and the sort of systems and the philosophies he puts into the players. So I'm looking at us to finish within that top 5 and, like I say, go deep into the Europa League. So that's my prediction as a Villa fan for the start of the season.
You'll have obviously seen the news this evening that Crystal Palace's appeal has been rejected. They're no longer in the Europa League. Does that make you feel a little bit better, Nathan, seeing as that your bogey team have been knocked out?
No, I do feel it is a little bit of a disservice for Palace. It is slightly, if you're a Crystal Palace fan, in my opinion, is, like you should be in that competition. Obviously, the laws and rules are around it. I do believe, and again, I've not gone too much into it, but I do believe that it was about March time when they was told that they potentially needed to make the changes because of the ownership of the two teams. And I think at the time, Palace didn't think they were going to win the competition. That side, I sort of kind of don't get that, because I think while you're still in the competition, you've got a chance of winning it. But it's come back now that they've lost their appeal. But I will say this, though. I mean, looking at Palace yesterday, I thought they were very good. I think there's some very good players there. There's players that potentially may be moving on from Palace, but I do think that they'll probably go far in the Conference League. I think that's probably better for them, in my opinion. Palace fans will probably disagree with me, saying that they could probably go far in the Europa League. But yes, after Palace basically tore us to shreds last season, I'm glad there's one less competition for them to beat us in next season.
As well, for myself, as a Newcastle fan, this whole pre-season has been a bit of a topsy-turvy one, really. I mean, there's been teas of players coming in, and then obviously a lot of rejections. A whole saga involving Isak. That's still going to be a saga till the window closes for me, I think.
Is he welcome in the first team, Sean, as a Newcastle fan, or do you want him as far away as possible?
Tough one. If he comes out and apologises and makes amends for his pretty shocking behaviour, really, then obviously as a Newcastle fan, class Isak is one of the world's best strikers at the minute. Would I like to see him in the team? Absolutely, of course I would. But he's got to want to be there as well. I don't think if it's like anyone in any workplace. If you don't want to be there, you're not going to perform at your best, are you? So no. Do I think if Isak stays, he's going to perform at his best? Potentially not. No. For me personally, 130 million now. Just take it, reinvest it. It gives us a nice little bumper on PSR. We might not be able to invest it straight away, but next year it's a little less to worry about. We do need to get someone in. We can't just rely on Asula. He's only a young lad, and other than Gordon playing in number 9, which I don't really. This is not his best position. It's going to be frustrating going into the new season potentially without a striker, yet alone a backup striker on the bench. So for me, it's all about let him go if we can get the right replacement in.
But who's replacing him though? So who is available that's going to get you?
There's talk of Wissa coming in, but I don't see Wissa as a direct replacement. It's been mentioned a few times.
I don't see him as a
It's great to have as someone to come in for 30, 40 minutes, or to come in and play in a cup game. A direct replacement for Isak is two completely different players. Do I think if Wissa started at Newcastle, he'd score goals? Absolutely, of course he will. He'll score goals, but I don't know if he'll do it week in, week out.
I think the issue you've got as well for me is obviously he was heavily linked with Seshko, that's just recently gone to Man United. You offered probably more money than what Man United did, but
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Phil's been behind sort of the chats that we've had about his thoughts on players wanting to go to like particular areas in the country, and Phil's been quite vocal about players that do want to come over here. They don't always see Newcastle as their first choice destination. Phil, is that right?
I just think it's a geographical challenge, isn't it? Like if you're abroad, everybody's heard of Liverpool, everybody's heard of Manchester, and everybody knows about London. Do you know what I mean? And they've got massive draw for foreign players, and we can be as polite and as pussyfoot around as we want to, really. But in terms of if you believe half of what you read, I think we're up to nearly a full team that have turned Newcastle down so far in this off-season. And some of it's been bad luck, hasn't it? Like getting James Trafford hijacked by Manchester City. Yeah. You're just triggered by the buyback. It's not really a player decision, is it? It's driven by a contract situation. But, the names you've been linked with who haven't come, like Guehi and kind of Sesko and Delap beforehand. And kind of, it's just, I don't know, Buemo's gone to United. It just seems to be a really challenging off-season when, I think, and we've touched on some of the prep calls for this, and I think we all felt Newcastle were going to go super strong in this window and come back, revitalised and re-energised. And I think it just, with the way the windows have gone for Newcastle, for Villa, for Tottenham as well, really, obviously everyone had that massive excitement about Gibbs White, and kind of obviously then that all kind of fell apart, and he's re-signed with Forest. So really, all in terms of headline signings, all Tottenham have really done is brought Kudus in. Like, I just think at the moment, and I mentioned it when I talked about Arsenal, and it feels like City, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Arsenal have all invested fortunes this year and kind of jumped up. And it feels like those teams who were right on the coattails, Newcastle, Villa. I know Tottenham finished poorly last season, but you would expect them to bounce back from that. So, it feels like they haven't strengthened in the same way. Like you say, you go into the season almost like you said, Nate, with the same spine and a very settled squad. Same with Newcastle. You've not really lost anybody huge yet. Obviously, I know Isak's dragging on, but it just feels like potentially treading water might not be enough.
PSR as well, though, isn't it? That's another reason we are, Villa and Newcastle, they are heavily restricted at the minute in what we can and what we can't do until we can start. Like from Villa, I've said this before, same as Newcastle, start breaking into that top 4 Champions League spots on a consistent basis year upon year. We're always going to have these problems where one year we get in and then the next year we don't. And that impacts heavily. And the fact that, we potentially, I don't know whether we still have to sell. I do think there's going to be a couple of outgoings from Villa, but the PSR is one of the reasons, in my opinion, that's why we can't. We've got just as wealthy owners as anyone else in this club. Newcastle probably got the wealthiest. They could go and whack 250 million quid on a striker if they could, but they're just not allowed to do it. So that's the frustrating thing. But you are right, Phil. I agree that I think the so-called top 4, if you want to class that as Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, and Chelsea, those squads that they've got now, I would argue to anyone, they've got improved massively compared to everyone else in the Premier League at the minute.
It feels that way. I mean, I think it's always interesting, isn't it, how teams are absolutely unbelievable world beaters in the off-season because they don't have to play anybody, do you know what I mean? And then you get the season started and you realise just how close things are. I mean, let's be honest. I don't know about you two, but I mean, genuinely, I just thought Liverpool would brush Palace aside yesterday. So, the amount I think Liverpool have had an absolutely stunning off-season. Obviously, tragedy allowing, but apart from that, they couldn't have asked for anything better from an off-season point of view. So to see Palace give them such a fight when really Palace, it feels from a distance, obviously I'm not a Crystal Palace fan, it feels from a distance that Palace haven't really strengthened. They've kind of, again, trod water. To watch them give Liverpool such a, even appreciating, as you say, Nate, it is essentially a glorified pre-season friendly. But to see them give Liverpool a real run for their money I think it brings people back down to earth. Sometimes we can all get caught up in the hype, can't we, these days of like, we all play FIFA, we all listen to the hype on TalkSport, we all listen to Sky Sports all the time. You can get caught up in the media circus that is, this player is this level and everybody else is this level. And actually, it's not really like that, is it? Not in the Premiership. Like, it's a lot closer than you could crave. But you're right, Nate, it does feel like currently those 4 clubs have gone on to a level where they're almost having separate squads for separate competitions, which might give them an advantage.
I think what it does do, though, Phil, is that I think with the money that's being spent, particularly from those 4 clubs, it does put a lot more pressure on the managers to deliver, whether that's Champions League football or whether, because the money they've invested now, your owners are like, look, you've told, like for Arsenal, you've told me now you need to strike. We've gone and got you what we think probably the best striker at the minute in Europe is in scintillating form. We want to see results now. We want to see you not sort of not let Liverpool win the league at a canter. We want to see us, if we're not going to win the league, we're going down to the last day. Like you were saying, Phil, we're going into the back end of the season. Same with Manchester City. Pep Guardiola has spent an absolute fortune from January until now. and he delivered nothing last season. And I know obviously for what he's delivered before, he's obviously got a lot of credit in the bank. But for me personally, I think again, if he doesn't do anything this season, that could be the end of him.
It's interesting though, isn't it? I know we've touched on it, and we could probably divert a whole show onto it, isn't it? That I sometimes think we as fans, or certainly ones with the sort of media we get thrown in our faces every day, operate on a different level to the owners sometimes. I think, you like to your point there about money invested. Like I think if you speak to Todd Bowley, for example, with Chelsea, we know none of us have a I don't think he gives a monkeys about trophies. I think what he gives the monkeys about is money. So I think when they won the Club World Cup, do I think he cares about the Club World Cup trophy? No. Do I think he cares about the £100 million it tags onto his PSR? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think most of the owners, those teams and even like so Newcastle and Man United and stuff like that, it's all business to them, isn't it? Like, I'm investing this many hundreds of millions of pounds into football club. I want to see more hundreds of millions of pounds coming back to me. Do I think they care? And therefore, do I think they care about going deep into the competitions? Yes, because that's where the prize money is. Do I think they particularly care about whether or not they win the actual competitions? No. I think what they care about is the prize money. I mean, I think, and it's interesting, isn't it? I think that PSR, and I think we're all on a reasonably similar page with it. I think PSR, to some degree, is completely backfired. I think what it's essentially done is it's created a boys' club at the top that keeps the rich rich. And those teams like Villa and like Newcastle are trying to close the gap. It puts them in an impossible position to close the gap, because essentially what you're saying is you've got all that money and we're not going to let you spend it. It's absolutely mental, isn't it? It's like someone starting a brand new business and going, I've got 500 million quid to put in, and the HMRC going, well, you can only put 100 grand in. It's crazy. You just go, well, if I want to chuck money at it, why can't I chuck money at it? So I think something's got to be done about PSR to make it not an inside club at the top table. But I do think for owners, but you're right. I think the managers are under pressure to make sure that the teams go deep into every competition, because I think what the owners care about is getting to the prize money. And I think, of course, you've got to get to the latter stages to unlock the prize money.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, with Chelsea as well, I mean, they've spent a fortune.
Look at their sales. Their sales are insane.
I don't know how they keep doing it. Every year, they seem to get players that haven't played a single game for them, and yet still manage to make 10-15 million pound profit on a pitch.
It's crazy. Like an Arsenal point of view, I'm really happy with the Madueke signing, and I think I liked him at Chelsea last season, and I think he's looked good for us in pre-season. But I look at it and go, crikey, if you're Chelsea, you've just made 25 million quid profit in about 14 months. Like it's just insane. Like their business model is phenomenal. Like one of the reasons they don't have such an issue with, I mean, I know they've won the Club World Cup to help there and stuff, and obviously getting the Champions League will help them, but their player sales alone take the pressure off their PSR. How on earth they made a profit on Dewsbury Hall is just unbelievable. Like,
he played very little football for Chelsea, didn't he, last season? Like, I mean, I don't know his appearance.
Hardly anything, and yet there's a profit.
And then apparently they want 100 million for Nicholas Jackson as well, which again, Chelsea fans might disagree with me, but I don't see that guy as a £100 million striker, in my opinion.
It's interesting, isn't it? Right, I would imagine right here, right now, in this conversation, none of us see him as a £100 million striker. But, and take this as my hot take for the night, I wouldn't be shocked if other things fall through if he turned up in a Newcastle shirt next season.
Yeah,
because it's a bit like musical chairs at the minute, isn't it? Like you say, if Isak does go and the domino starts to tumble, who else is on the market? Like, as much as I don't think Nicholas Jackson is a leader, and certainly not anywhere near the quality of Isak, to your point, Sean, if you're Newcastle's owners, you're going, do I go into the Premiership season with no recognised leading the line striker?
I think you can.
Or do I just panic buy and do you know what, he's available? I might buy someone else next season, but I need someone, because I cannot possibly go into the season. I mean, I know you two laugh at me every time, but I genuinely think back to the days of the 90s and like the types of Newcastle strikers who've done well in the past. And as I say, I know you two will laugh at me when I say this, but you just need to go and get Mateta. Need Mateta. He'd be unbelievable in a Newcastle shirt. He'd be like Tino Asprilla reborn. Do you know what I mean? He'd be like,
can you imagine? It'd be a fantastic signing. But I think to be fair to Palace, I think fair play to them so far for holding on to Eze and Mateta.
If you read the rumours on certain social media platforms, apparently, I've said it before, but there has been a fee agreed between Arsenal and Eze. They just need to find a replacement. I think Parish has come out and just he knows that he's going to struggle to keep hold of them too. He knows he's going to get very good money for them, but what he says, and he's right, for a team like Palace, it's the life cycle of them. They'll produce and develop good young players and sell them on for a massive profit.
It's interesting what because Eze came out and was one of his interviews, didn't he, yesterday, and said because they said something like, how do you feel? So he was like, well, it's mission accomplished at Palace now, so let's see what happens. So it's almost like you could almost believe they had a chat, him and Parish, and went, look,
he's ready to go, and he's ready to make that
it's almost
step.
like he would have gone, look, we want a chance to win the Community Shield. The window will still be open. Come and give it, play out your skin in that match, and then we'll work with you to get you what you want. Because he's a boyhood Arsenal fan, isn't he? Like you say, I've seen it. I saw a couple of bits early this morning, and I just sort of dismissed him really, because I've been, obviously as an Arsenal fan, super hopeful about this Eze rumour, because he flipping destroyed us at the back end of last season.
Amazing player.
It's like you say, it's grown through the day, hasn't it? And everybody seems to be a common consensus. They're all either copying and pasting, or there's something behind it where they think it's sort of 55 million or something with 30 million up front. So it seems to be growing pace that's being reported in more and more play. Of course, like I said, as you said, Nate, the joys of social media these days, it could just be everybody copying everybody else, and it actually might actually not in it at all.
There's that many different sources on, there's some very respectable. See, the thing for me is whenever I go onto social media, there are certain journalists that are well connected with my club, just the same as they are with and you don't sort of believe it until they sort of put it out there. And when they put it out there, you know that it is gathering pace. But there is some of like your level 3 and 4 journalists that have maybe broke stuff in the past, and then it has sort of come true. But like your people that are close to your club, once they break it, it's true, basically. The question I wanted to ask, you just touched on Mateta, is I think he's good. Do you think if he went to a supposed bigger club, he could produce that same sort of performances that he does, or do you think he works well with that team that he is at Palace?
So I think when you look at his record, clearly something last season with Glasner clicked. Do you know what I mean? Whatever happened with his man management, or he's clearly had one of the best seasons of his career. But I think when you look at him and you look at his size and his power and his pace and his stats as well around shot conversion, in terms of, he had one of the best shot conversion ratios in the league last season, if not the best, I think, at one point in time. But put it this way, if you're asking me, would I rather have Mateta over Gyökeres? Absolutely. I would. I think I like what Gyökeres has got as potential, but fundamentally Mateta's done it in the Premier League. He's got that shot conversion ratio, he's got the power, he's got the ability to hold the ball up, he's got the ability to drive through, he's got the ability to scare defenders. I think, genuinely, if Isak goes, I think Newcastle could do far worse and suddenly just drop 70 million quid on Crystal Palace's door and go, look, you might value him at 40, there's 70, just let him go right now. And I think he'd be terrifying at Newcastle.
I do like him. I think he's a lot different to the striker. Like you say, you've got Gyökeres. For me, I think he's a lot different to obviously how Ollie Watkins operates. I think what Ollie Watkins does off the ball in terms of his hold-up play and his assists is something that I would prefer still to see, rather than Mateta, who is this big, strong unit. But that doesn't mean it doesn't work for other. I mean, look how well it works for Palace. Could it work for Newcastle? I don't know, because obviously Isak, even though he's strong and powerful, he's quite skillful, isn't he, Isak, as well?
Sometimes the ball just sits in his feet.
If you think about him in a Newcastle, I know we're wish listing now, so we're kind of going slightly off topic, but I think if you think about that Newcastle team, if you add him into it, and the spine of that team with Dan Burn is an absolutely massive unit, Joe Linton and Bruno Guimaraes are big units. You've got Mateta. It's just a bit, like the Chelsea team of the early 2000s that Mourinho built. It'd just be a big team. Do you know what I mean? A big, powerful team. And the reality is, teams don't like playing those teams because it means every match against them is a hard match, doesn't it? Van Dijk might actually have to comb his hair at half-time, something like that. Do you know what I mean? They don't want to play them because they're going to have a rough afternoon, because it's going to be
Stoke City, Tony Pulis, when they first got to the Premier League.
But with skill, do you know what I mean? I'm not suggesting Joe Linton and Guimaraes aren't skillful. Do you know what I mean? As I say, it's more reminded that Chelsea team of the early 2000s where, Lampard and Drogba and Terry, they all were really good players in their positions.
Physical, strong team.
But they were all just nailed in terms of toughness, and they were just a horrible team to play. And I just think that's where a Mateta, and again, in my mind, again from a distance, and I'm not a Newcastle fan, but that fits that mould of what I imagine of Newcastle strikers. Do you know what I mean? Powerful, driving. You can just see it now, can't you? With like, and I know it's not with Elanga and Gordon and Mateta pouring forward with Guimaraes. You can just see it. Do you know what I mean? That style of hitting teams quickly would suit, I think, because I don't think Newcastle play what I would say the boring style of modern football, and I class Arsenal playing that as well. Just to be clear, where it's all about control and Newcastle are still more of a dynamic transition power attacking team, aren't they? And I think Mateta suits that. That's what Crystal Palace were playing last season and played it really well. So I think you're right, Nathan. Different types of strikers look for different things, which is why probably teams like Arsenal and the so-called top teams didn't push Mateta more.
That's interesting though, isn't it?
Because striker, but I still think he's a top goal scoring striker.
I think he's a very good player, but I don't think he's what Villa need at the minute, and I don't think it's what Arsenal need. Newcastle maybe, but that's why it works so well at Palace, doesn't it? Because he's got the team who he knows the know inside out. So that was my question as originally: if he goes to a bigger team, does he get that same level of performance, get the same amount of goals? And
I think he'd end up being a bit more in a top team. He'd end up being, and another comparisons, but a bit more like an Erling Haaland. What he would add to a top team would be goal scoring, but because they wouldn't build the team around him, he wouldn't add a lot else. Like how often with Haaland does like 87 minutes of anonymity and then like he just scores a goal? And I think he would end up like that in a top team where he wouldn't add a great deal to the build-up play. To your point, he wouldn't add much hold-up play, but with his shot conversion rate, I think what he would do is when the chances were created, he'd just finish them like Haaland does. So I think he would be a different player in that team. Now the question is whether he could play in that team because he might just get bored. Erling Haaland's happy, and he said a million times in interviews all he wants to do is score goals. He doesn't care about the rest of what goes on the pitch.
That's what he's there for, though, isn't it? He's
got that mentality. That's why it works for him. He doesn't feel any guilt, does he, about not being involved in the build-up play?
No, but we've all played the game where we've had strikers like that where their job is literally just to score. You stay up as far up that pitch as you can, and you literally, as soon as you give an half a chance, you smack it in the back of the net. That's all we needed to do. I don't need you to come back for corners. I don't need you stay up there, be a nuisance and stuff. And that's obviously what Haaland's good at. Man City fans might say, well, actually, he's quite good at defending corners because how tall he is and stuff. But I don't really see that from him. But
I think going back to your original question, I think that's how Mateta would fit into a top team. You would just say to him, "We'll ignore you from a build-up play point of view. You will just play on the shoulder like last defender." Because you'll naturally pull them back and give us space because they won't want your pace going in behind. So that's where he'd add. But like I said, you boys both know I rate Mateta. Do you know what I mean? I would have points this off season. I would have murdered to get him to an Arsenal shirt.
Hey, Dean Henderson for me though, a very good keeper as well. I mean, I know I'll talk about England, but I know he starts for. He's got to be close to being with the shout now for me, Henderson. I think he's a very good goalkeeper, but. I do think that he's got to be sort of.
So I don't know. I think he's right up there in skill level. I think
he's a very good goalkeeper.
I think, and I'm not a huge naysayer or lover of Jordan Pickford either way, to be honest. But what I would say about Pickford, to be fair to him, is he's never let England down.
No.
And I think as long as you've got that, different conversations from you boys, but I think if someone's shown loyalty and performance, I think regardless of who's coming through the ranks, it's your jersey. Do you know what I mean? Unless you screw something up, he's never let us down as a country. And I think unless he's got some huge clanger in the next 12 months, I think he's earned his right to go to the World Cup at least one more time and be our goalkeeper, no matter how good Henderson is. And I might sound a bit blind. Particularly on the back of the women's Euros, isn't it? Where obviously, from a distance, I'm not too close to women's football, but we're all kind of questioning, what do you mean you've dropped Mary Earps? That's absolutely madness. But, she did an absolutely fantastic job, didn't she? Hannah, was it Hannah somebody?
Hampton.
Yeah.
Mary Earps retired though, didn't she? So it obviously.
Yeah, but she only retired after she was dropped, which to me, again, from a distance, felt a bit like a sulk of like, if I can't be number one, I'm just not going to play. Whereas, that Hannah Hampton came in and I watched, but to be fair, I watched most of England's matches in the end, and obviously we did far too many penalty shootouts, but you looked and it was absolutely the right call. She played absolutely. I'm not saying Mary Earps wouldn't have saved those penalties and stuff, but fundamentally it's the right call. But so maybe it's too short-sighted.
Would it not depend on, obviously, again, because Everton, for me, being very, very close, at the bottom of that table. I mean, they've sort of shifted the way they've brought in managers to save them. I do think Moyes is the right man for the job, but it also depends on obviously what sort of season that Everton have as well with Pickford. Or do you think doesn't matter whether Everton finish bottom, he's still going to be number one for England?
I think goalkeeper's a very different position, and goalkeeper's one of the few, well, possibly probably the only position you can play where you can be in a relegated team and still be up there for player of the season, because effectively when you're a relegated team, all you get a chance every week to do is shine chance after, because you kind of go, well, we might have lost 3-0, but people still go, oh, it would have been 9 or 10 without the goalie. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can still shine as a goalkeeper in a team that's doing badly, because you know, people will go, oh man, we should have lost 12 or 13-0 today, but it's only been 1-0 because like Pickford had a blinder, and they won't blame him.
He's done that far too many times for Everton these last few seasons, hasn't he? Where he's been, if it weren't for him, the scoreline could have been 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
So I think because of that, it's probably the only position where it's very much individual performance goalkeeper, isn't it? You know what I mean? You either save the shot or you don't. There's nowhere to hide as a goalkeeper, is there? You're either playing well and saving the shot, so you're letting him in. You can blame your defenders so far for letting them have more shots, but fundamentally, you have a chance to save every single shot that comes at you. Your defense could be absolutely horrific, but you might still save every single shot and make it and keep a clean sheet. So I think he'll still get his chance to shine.
It's a big season for Everton, in my opinion. New stadium. I think they have invested, decent. I think Dewsbury Hall's going to be a good player for them. I know we didn't do
just got Grealish on a season-long loan as well, haven't they? For an option to buy.
I really think this season
it's a good bit of business for Everton. I think that.
Well, I think this season might be the season West Ham fans realise how they should have given David Moyes more time. I think again, you boys know how I feel about kind of loyalty in football should be more of a two-way street. And I think, again, from a distance, watching some of the way they turned on Moyes after what he did for him with the trophy, and I just think it was a bit out of order. And I think, careful what you wish for, really, because I think it's a massive season for West Ham, isn't it, to prove and to try and demonstrate that it was the right call, really.
So obviously they've lost one of their influential players.
Yeah, and they don't seem to have strengthened in a great way.
They've lost, obviously, Mikel Antonio, didn't he? He's obviously been released. They've signed Callum Wilson.
Yeah.
Again, for me, I've said Callum Wilson, I think he's a very good striker if he can stay fit. He's that Calvin type player, isn't it? That's if he can stay fit. But yeah, I think just going back to Everton, £15 million loan fee, which is quite a large loan fee, isn't it? Like, compared to what you usually get for 50 million at the end of the season, depending on terms and conditions. So we were saying just off air that 65 million quid they could get back off a player who's, as much as it pains me to say it because he's one of my favourite ever Villa players, not really done it at City last season. He doesn't look comfortable there. I think it's the right time for him to move out of the club. I just have to question why Everton. Obviously, I know he'll start week in, week out. Do I think he was probably capable of probably going a little bit higher? Yes. But maybe Moyes has promised him.
I think the thing is, I think Jack Grealish's struggles at City, in my mind, is more of a damnation of Pep's style of management. Do you know what I mean? Like it's this process over flair. There's a lot of talk about it recently, isn't there? In various media outlets, are kind of like watch matches from the 90s, and they're more exciting to watch than matches from. And in general, I feel they are. Because you were allowed those maverick players, and it was like, basically you're the player, you've got the skill, you crack on, you get on there and do what you need to do. And Pep Guardiola strangles that out of players. And I just think that, while I think what we saw at Man City is probably Jack Grealish trying to get on board with what Pep wanted, but in reality, every bone of his body that's got flair in it doesn't want to play that way because he's just not driven. So, and I think he could be, not necessarily in terms of goals, maybe. But I do think in a Moyes system, Grealish could be the key that unlocks a really, really big job. And what I mean by that is, you'll both know from stats anyway that, Grealish is the most foul player in the Premier League. Well, as far as my memory goes back, David Moyes' teams like set pieces. So do I think Grealish could win dozens and dozens and dozens of set pieces that set Everton up to score goals? Tarkowski and people like coming in from swinging balls in and score goals from the headers. So do I think Grealish might score directly? No. But do I think Grealish could add 10 or 15 goals a season to Everton's haul? Yeah, just by dint of getting free kicks in and around the area. So then their big defenders come up and bang, then they're knocking them in. Do you know what I mean? So
There's no doubt in my mind that despite his sort of non-existent season last year, there's no doubt. I believe even now he comes into Everton and he improves Everton massively. I think it'll be good. I think a lot of Everton fans are excited. I just hope, from a personal perspective, that we do get to see the Grealish of what I seen at Villa. And like I've said this to you guys before, while I've been supporting Villa, for 35 years, he's hands down the very best player I've ever seen at Villa. And I think we deserve to see it again. It's a shame that it ain't going to be in a Villa shirt from my perspective, but the Premier League deserves to see that version of Jack Grealish again. And I do believe we can probably get, maybe not back fully there, but I think Moyes can get a tune out of him, definitely. So
I feel like
it's a big
Moyes will
season.
let him loose a little bit and take the reins off him a little bit at Everton.
He needs that. That's what he
Like I
needs.
say, I
He
think he
needs
needs it.
license to do whatever he wants to do, because when you've got a Jack Grealish who can do whatever he wants, he's unstoppable. And you've seen
And I think, like you say, Sean, I think Moyes will do that for him. You look at the free rein he let Kudus have when he was at West Ham, and he's not afraid to let a player lead. And like you said, Nathan, I think Grealish needs that, doesn't he? He's a proper. He's like to some degree, his struggles haven't been his own fault, like this player's was, but he's our modern version of Gascoigne, isn't he? Like, just leave him alone and let him work his magic. Do you know what I mean? And he's like Gascoigne so far, he's not had anywhere near the career that he should have had. But I think the difference is Gascoigne's was his own doing, whereas I think Grealish, like I said, for me, and I love Jack Grealish, absolutely adore him. I've never supported a team he's played for, obviously apart from England. But for me, I hold Guardiola criminally responsible for ruining his career. I just genuinely think so much of what's gone wrong at City is because Guardiola doesn't know how to use Grealish's talent. And I'm really hoping that transfer, like you said, Nate, is a reignition of Grealish's quality. And like you touching on your boys, you know what I mean? The fact that I do find it absolutely bizarre that Villa were even talked about considering buying Marcus Rashford when they had the option of just buying Grealish back. Like, it just seems madness to me, that, as to why
I think the decision for Rashford was made at the end of the season. I think we knew once we didn't get into the Champions League, we knew that even if we wanted to sign Rashford, I think you were very much like, right, we got out of Rashford what we needed him to do. We needed to put in better performances. We got a tune out of him. I don't think it's the best version of Marcus Rashford we've ever seen, because there's been 5 or 6 seasons ago he was brilliant. There's a reason why, obviously, Man United gave him a bumper contract, and fair play to him. He's got to move to Barcelona now. Let's see how he improves in playing in La Liga. But
Read reports that they were struggling to register him at some point, or is that old news now?
Well, nothing surprising me with Barcelona, is it? Because of obviously they've got issues in all sorts of places.
They always seem to have issues. Every transfer window, they seem to have issues.
I mean, they had to get rid of Messi, didn't they? Because they had proper transfer issues. When you have to get rid of arguably one of the greatest ever players because you can't afford to keep him, whatever. That's when you know that your club's not being run right. But yeah, he got his move to there. But it works for Man United. Clearly didn't want him after he came out publicly and said he didn't want to play for United. Obviously, that pissed a lot of the United fans off, and obviously it pissed Ruben Amorim off. But he's gone on. It's best for the club, isn't it? So, and it's best for the player. But yeah, I just go back to my point, Phil, in short, I think as soon as we finished outside the Champions League spots, I think he's gone, well, that's it, I'm not going to come back. And we probably knew that. He probably would have said to us, look, if we do get the Champions League football, let's talk, let's see what we can offer you.
Yes.
So, and probably a bit like Asensio as well, like he's gone, but there is rumours that we're back in talks with him now, because a move to, I think it's Fenerbahce, I think that fell through.
Did it fall through? I thought it was done.
Yeah, so it fell through. So he's available for not 12 million, but in terms of transfers for players in this day and age, I don't deem 12 million too bad.
Cheapest chips in this
market.
So
the only thing I didn't like is, I think once Asensio was playing for Villa, it sort of pushed Morgan Rogers out a little bit, and I want this season, I want a bit like how Grealish was at the start. I want everything to go through Rodgers, because I believe he's capable of doing that. I want him to have the freedom to do what he wants. And he did have that at times last season, and to me, he was unplayable in games in some areas of the season. Some games maybe not. He was non-existent, but he did play a lot of football. So, but yeah, there's players that I believe, same with Newcastle as well, that we're interested in, but we either can't sign them or they don't want to come to us. One, we don't have, well, Newcastle are a little bit different. They have Champions League football, which is why I'm surprised that they can't attract more players than what they have. Whereas we're in the Europa League now, and some players will look at us and go, even though we think Unai Emery's brilliant, Villa are a big club, I don't want to be playing anything less than Champions League football. And that's the struggle, isn't it? If you want to get the very best players in, you need to be in the very best competitions, and then we're not in it that season. So I accept that. But I think it's down to us now, or it's down to someone like Unai Emery to say, right, I'll show you lot now. You're all saying that I need to sign all these players when I've got these players here, and I could do equally as well. And I said to you just when we introduced ourselves, I'm still confident this season. I still think that we've got a point to prove, and I still don't think you'll see us finish any less than 6, in my opinion.
Well, speaking of finishing 6, going back a few weeks when we were getting his act together and looking at what we're potentially going to do with the show, we all put our top 6 predictions in. Well, we did the whole table, to be fair, but let's quickly just go through our top 6 and just see since 4 weeks ago when we originally did this, has any of our top 6 changed since then? So I'll start with those since it's right there on the list. Obviously, Arsenal to win, Liverpool in second, Man City third, Chelsea fourth, Newcastle fifth, and Man United sixth. No Villa. And then we've got Nathan who predicted Liverpool to win it, Man City in second, Arsenal third, Chelsea fourth, Villa fifth, and Newcastle in sixth. Mine were the same as Nathan's, apart from I had Newcastle and Villa the opposite way around, 5th and 6th.
I still don't see Arsenal winning the league. And Phil's going to disagree with me. Arsenal fans, I still don't think you win the league.
In terms of your top 6, have you changed anything, Nate? Was the question, wasn't it?
So no, I wouldn't change anything from it. Maybe Chelsea going one place above if I was to check, but other than that, it doesn't change.
So you think Arsenal 4th?
Well, I think, what did I have? Man City. What did I say?
Yeah, I had Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Villa, Newcastle.
Maybe.
It's interesting. So I have changed mine. I'm not going to lie. So I haven't changed the top 4. I think the top 4 are what the top 4 are. I think it will be Arsenal. So if I was really, really pushed, I'd say I think Arsenal, Liverpool win it. But I'm going to, for the purpose of this, I'm happy to say Arsenal win it for what I said earlier on. I think having the foundation and the fact we've now, obviously 4 or 5 weeks when we did this discussion, we hadn't signed Gyökeres. So all the talk was, would we get Gyökeres? Would we get Sesko at the time? Now we've got Gyökeres on board. I'm certainly not going to backtrack from saying that, I think we win it. And obviously Liverpool haven't picked up Isak. So, I don't think there's been a great deal of change in what Liverpool's business has been last 4. So I'm still happy to say Liverpool second. I was still happy with City and Chelsea. I think there's a lot of settling in to do for those 2 teams. I think they'll have some massive wins. I think they'll have some big lows. But I think Guardiola probably pips his apprentice into 3rd and 4th. But where I am going to be super controversial now, and I'm not going to lie, is I was on a different chat group of mine. I genuinely think Man United take 5th at this point in time now. I think that, and I know going through the discussion with you boys last time, the reason I had them in 6th was because no European football, plenty of time on the training ground. Obviously, again, since we've had this conversation, obviously we've had that conversation, should I say, they've now signed Mbeumo, they've now signed Sesko. All the talk seems to be they're going in for Belieber, so God knows where this money's coming from. Like Jim Radcliffe,
as well, don't they?
Jim Radcliffe must have found like a spare couple of £1 billion out the back of his sofa. But
well, there's 600 people made redundant, but yeah, they can.
I don't think that's where a couple of billion comes from, is it? But yeah, I think ignoring Donnarumma, ignoring Belieber, I think with what they've done to their forward line, not having any European football, if Ruben Amorim is anywhere near the manager that we all listen to Mark Goldrich talk about all the time, but if he's anywhere near the manager that anybody thinks he might be, I don't think they have an excuse not to finish 5th. Because, again, skipping on from 4 weeks ago, I thought by now Newcastle would have strengthened more for various reasons that hasn't happened. And obviously the Isak thing, I know I was pulling your leg last time we did this conversation, Sean, but the Isak thing has actually grown pace to a point of view where we all thought it was a massive joke when we first talked about it, and now it actually looks like it might be a serious threat to you.
Yeah.
So I think the unsettlement of Newcastle, and like you said, the fact they're either going to go in with a striker who's either disenchanted and not really trying his best, or go in potentially with no striker, or even if you get Wissa, a striker who's unproven at the very top level. It's one thing doing it for Brentford, it's another thing doing it for a team that's in the Champions League.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that pushes Newcastle, and obviously from my other predictions, obviously Tottenham haven't even. We thought Tottenham would get Gibbs White last time we did this. They didn't get him, so I don't see Tottenham breaking into that top six.
Madison's done his ACL as well, and he's
obviously got, which is really so sad for him, particularly from an England point of view.
He spent a long season injured last year. I mean, again, I'm not a Spurs fan, but I'm sure he spent
he was on,
yeah.
And so you got that. So I don't see Spurs breaking in. No offense, Nate. I don't take this as it's meant. Beyond being a Villa fan, I don't see how you've got Villa in fifth. I just think the fact they've not strengthened. I just think other teams have strength. So yeah. So my controversial take would be I probably swap Newcastle and Man United now. I probably put Man United in fifth, and Newcastle in sixth. And then I can't remember what we did down the table. But I don't see Tottenham pushing Newcastle out. I think, and that's for those watching the channel for the first time. Obviously, I'll take this as it's meant. Like I am not clearly not a Tottenham fan, as I wear an Arsenal badge on my heart. But I do love Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank has put me in a very difficult position this season because I absolutely love Thomas Frank. So for the fact I like Thomas Frank, I hope he does I hope he does well, and I do hope Tottenham have a decent season. But I still don't see him breaking into the top six. I just don't see it happening.
So, Sean, do your predictions change then? Because obviously you said you had minus Villa and Newcastle the wrong way round. What do you think for your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Nathan, I'm sort of siding with Phil a little bit here. I think me and you, I think we're going to suffer a little bit this year, and I do think we're at risk of Man United potentially taking that jump above us.
I'm not. I'm genuinely not. And I'm not saying that Man United haven't strengthened, because they've made some good players. But what they don't have is they don't have a great team at the minute. Whereas I think that we have a better team than Man United, and I think that's why we'll finish above them. I think we have a better squad. Yeah, they might have just chucked 200 million at 3 players, great players. But while ever you still got Onana, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, all these players, Casemiro, we have far better players, Newcastle and Villa, and that's why I believe.
I think with Newcastle, I think this
statement though, because I think those players you've just named are Man United squad, but apart from Onana, but the other players are just Man United squad players, and with the best will in the world, and I know he's towards the back end of his career. Casemiro on your bench as a multiple Champions League winner from Real Madrid. It's not. You can't say the squad hasn't got quality. Like,
but do you think Casemiro played well last season? Because I didn't. Where Man United finished, he was absolutely horrendous.
I think he played better at points last season than he did after. Sorry, I think he played better after Amorim came in and gave him a run of games than he did at the start of the season for Ten Hag, when he had clearly fallen out with him. And I think, Harry Maguire. You say Harry Maguire fundamentally is an England defender, and to be fair to Harry Maguire, he played really well last season. Like, and I don't think he's Man United's first choice. I think if you, again, we're not a Man United show, but I think, Man United's first choice 3 centre backs are Martinez, De Ligt, and Yoro. I don't think Maguire's the starting centre back if those 3 are fit. So with the best in the world, I think you've just named their squad players on the bench. And I think if you named your mirrored squad players on the bench, I don't think Villa and Newcastle have as stronger teams. It's got squads. I think they've got stronger or equally as strong first teams. But that's where I think Man United don't have European football. You guys have got to manage Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, whatever it's going to be. They don't. So I think their squad is stronger. I think first teams are all the same. I think their squad is stronger, and they won't have to play as many games as you will. Like, they get to sit and rest in Manchester all week while you'll be flying all over Europe to play your game.
My main worry for us, again, is the fact that we're going to be playing an extra number of games, and
minimum 8, isn't it? Even get knocked out of Champions League in the first round, which will never happen, by the way, just to be clear. I'm putting it down the channel right now. There's no way Newcastle are going out in the league stage. No. But even if by some miracle you did, you still got to play 8 games.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. I think it is going to be. It's always a challenge whenever you want to juggle 4 different competitions: the Premier League, Europe, then your 2 domestic. Well, the pressure is going to be on Amorim, like I was saying. The pressure we see on the top 4 managers, or the massive. Man United spent massive money, and if Amorim isn't getting the results, sort of come Christmas time, then who knows? But then you're into that cycle again, and Man United churning out managers, thinking it's the manager that's the problem, and when is it the manager?
I think for me, I had them in. Did you say I had them in 6, Sean, originally?
Yeah,
I had them in 6. So I guess in terms of this conversation, for me, I had them in 6 when they'd only signed Cunha. Since then, they've now signed Mbeumo and Sesko. So, we talk about, well, you talked about, Sean, Newcastle challenging the front line if Isak chucks his toys out or keeps his toys out the pram and doesn't whine himself. That front line, for all, you are right, Nate, and you're going to tell me, they've signed a Brentford player and a Wolves player. And an unknown player from Germany. You could cut through it again. Cut through the marketing hype. Fundamentally, that's what they've done. They've signed a player from Wolves, a player from Brentford, and an unknown striker from Germany. If you go back 10 years and said that, you'd be like, "What use are they to them?" But when you actually look at them as a front line, you must think they're going to give defenders problems.
Maybe. But like I was saying to Man United, I said this to a work colleague of mine. He still thinks Man United has still got the top drawer in the world, and I don't think that they have. Because if Man United genuinely, and I'm not saying that they're not a massive club, they're massive, one of the biggest clubs in the world. I don't think they have the pull of what they had under Sir Alex, where they could go in for the world's very best. Yes, I do believe that Cunha and Mbeumo and Sesko, they're going to be good additions. But arguably, what I was saying is like if Man United had that top draw, then they'd be signing Isak, they'd be signing Florian Wirtz, they'd be signing all these players. So they're having to settle for players from lower down the league that's their best players. So
I think you're right on that. I think from what we talked about earlier, I think you've got and just to use again, it's easy to say in the off season, isn't it, when you haven't got any losses to look at? And I'm sure come next week when Arsenal have dropped points at Old Trafford, I'll be completely humble, and I won't, by the way, but we can pretend that I might. But if you take out what we've, I guess, termed the 4 super squads in the league, take them out of it, I genuinely think at that point Man United have got the biggest pull in the division. Because look at the fact, well, 2 of those 3 players turned down Newcastle directly to go to Man United. Like it's not a guess, is it? Like Sesko and Mbeumo directly turned down Newcastle. Sesko, who was offered more money to go to Newcastle, turned down Newcastle to pick Man United. So it's not even a discussion, is it? Man United, this is mentioned, I'm not trying to pop at Newcastle in this conversation, but Man United definitely have a bigger pull than Newcastle. And if you actually take the 4, like I say, we turn them the big 4 out for a minute, and I know they're not big 4 before anyone comments and tells me I'm crazy. Just for the moment of this conversation, take the top 4 out. Who has a bigger pull than Man United?
We're doing it, or you're saying it just on the name alone. It's not because they're an attractive proposition. To me, I don't think that they are.
No, but so from a footballing point of view, I agree with you. But from what we talked about earlier, football now being a business, and Man United have spoken in the last decade, they've not really cared how crap they've been on the football pitch, even though they've won trophies. What they've done over the last 10 years is continue to build the brand. But it's the brand that attracts players. Because what a lot of these players want now, they want to build their social media following, don't they? They want to build all their opportunities outside of football. So that the fact that they can piggyback onto Man United's marketing and Man United's branding and then grow their own branding off the back of it is a huge draw to players from a social media generation. Like someone like Jadon Sancho, he's not staying at Man United. He thinks he's going to play. He's staying at Man United because it keeps him up on the TikTok and the Instagram feeds, doesn't it? Because he's still a Man United player, and that by dint of just being a Man United player gets him the views and gets him income and revenue. That's why he's still there, as well as the 250 grand a week, whereas they're paying.
So I'm sure that probably helps him.
But what club outside of Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal have got a bigger draw than Man United? Which club could you possibly argue has got a bit? Forget not from a footballing point, but I agree with you. I'm not saying they play the best football from the rest, but if you're a player, which club's got a bigger draw than Man United? If you take those other 4 out of it, I just don't think it's
the brand, isn't it? It's the brand that attracts people, which is disappointing. It's disappointing because I believe that there's players that that could play for better teams.
I agree. So I agree with that. I'm not saying they're a better team than Villa and Newcastle. What I'm saying is I think their pull is bigger because of history, because of
you're Benjamin Šeško now, and you and again, take this as Man United fans. you've turned down more money and you've turned down Champions League football to go and play for Man United. So there is a draw, isn't there? There's got to be.
There's not a single reason why Benjamin Sesko chose Man United over Newcastle that is footballing based. Every single thing of those offers, if you're Benjamin Sesko, your better choice was to go and play under Eddie Howe, develop under a manager who's proven to bring young players on, who's going to the club that's, like you said, guys, is the richest club in the world. Whether they're allowed to use the money or not is irrelevant. Who've got an absolute ambition to build into that top quadrant and become one of the super teams. And you're in a city where literally they worship football. There's no footballing reason why you would have chose Man United. The only reason is brand and personal profile.
Yeah,
it has to be. And like you said, Nate, that's a sad indictment of where football is right now, because you're not making a decision on footballing potential.
I still potential marketing deals as well are in and around the certain sponsorship deals that relate to the club as well. So it might just be the fact that Adidas piggy bank on Sesko as well with the shirt sales. It's like you said,
absolutely.
Man United are a big club. We can't deny that.
They're a mess of a club, though, aren't they? Like I say, their owners are, using them as a personal piggy bank. The stadium's falling down. They're introducing all these wild schemes. They're sacking members of staff, and then they go, "Oh yeah, but we're still Man United," and that's
unveiled the brand new training facilities as well, haven't they, this week?
I just find it a bit bizarre.
But like Phil said, we're not the Man United show, so we don't need to sit here all night discussing Man United as much as some people would love that, But let's look forward to this weekend's football and this weekend's fixtures. It's the opening weekend of the Premier League, starting Friday night with Liverpool-Bournemouth. Last week we did touch on quickly our predictions. Do you want to fly through them again quickly, or do you want me to pick a few highlights from this weekend and go from there?
Can you just remind us what we've done, Sean, in terms of what we've all selected?
Right, okay, so first game, obviously, Liverpool and Bournemouth. I predicted 3-0 to Liverpool. Phil went 2-0, and yourself, Nathan, went 3-1 to Liverpool. Any changes on that?
I can't see Bournemouth. I don't know about Darius, but I can't see Bournemouth stopping Liverpool as much as Palace put up. I think Palace, fielded a team that's stronger than Bournemouth will field. I think Liverpool will be too much for Bournemouth. I just cannot see that Bournemouth side stopping Liverpool.
My prediction, I'm still going to go, but I'm controversial. I'm going to go the Bournemouth score first, and it sort of puts the dampener on. But I think obviously
there's no bonus points for that, Nathan, unfortunately. But yeah, okay.
Always the way, like in the first game of the season, there's always something a little bit doesn't go to the script, and I think the script, Bournemouth maybe score early in the first 10, 15, maybe shut up shop till half time, and then obviously the big boys come on and then change the game, and then ultimately. Yeah. Too much quality. That's my prediction.
We've got 12:30 kick-off Saturday. Villa at home to Newcastle. Phil, you predicted on this one 2 apiece.
I did.
Nathan, you predicted 2-0 win for Villa, and I predicted a 1-1 draw. Any changes there?
No. I think we have a very good record against Newcastle at Villa Park.
You do at home, yeah. At home you do, yeah.
Our away form's terrible, but I do think that but it's the opening game of the season, and it wouldn't surprise me if we did get beat, but then it wouldn't surprise me if we won 3 or 4-0. That's the opening day. But I think the interesting thing for me from last season, it's not last season, we lost 1 game at home all season. That was our first home game, which was against Arsenal. So our home form is it's been consistently very good for the last 2 or 3 years. And I don't see that changing. I think you've got to be a very, very good team to come to Villa Park and turn us over. Away is completely different because our away form were terrible. But no, I still think we have that little bit too much. And I think while you've still got the striker controversy as well, I think that could play into our favour as well. But it wouldn't surprise me because even though I think he's a good player, but I don't. Anthony Gordon, like he likes to put in a good performance. So does Harvey Barnes as well. He loves a goal against Villa. So, but no, I don't. I still see it going the same way.
Okay. Then we've got Brighton and Fulham.
What did we have? Did I have Fulham win?
You had Fulham 2-1. Nathan, you had Brighton 1-0. And I had Brighton 2-0.
There's nothing. I've not seen enough from either of them to change my mind. I just think the way the season went last season, I think Fulham Fulham will probably edge that. I mean, the teams are very, very close, aren't they? I just didn't want to pick another draw, to be fair. I'm hoping for not very many draws, to be fair. So I just think Fulham. I think Fulham edge. I know you guys think Brighton do, but I think we all agree they're very, very closely matched down. And like you said, Nate, they can kind of go either way, can't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it definitely does. I think it wouldn't surprise me if Brighton won. It wouldn't surprise me if Fulham sort of got there. I think very two evenly matched teams. I think what it comes down to is, first game of the season, who's got that sharpness and who's had the better sort of form going. I say form. Who's had the better sort of individual performances in pre-season? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not paid too much attention to who Brighton have signed. I know there's a couple of players that have come in, and same for Fulham as well. But Fulham have got a good squad, in my opinion. They've I like that left back. Is it Robinson? I think he's a very good player. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Emile Smith-Rowe as well. Even when he was linked with Villa,
he looked really good when he came in last year. To be fair to him, they looked really comfortable in that role. Moving on, then we've got Sunderland and West Ham. I predicted 2-0 Sunderland, controversially. Phil 1-0 Sunderland, and Nathan, you went 1 apiece. Any changes on them?
No.
I think the
West Ham for me.
Yeah, I think West Ham are going to struggle this season, and I think Sunderland at home, right? I think just Sunderland at home with the crowd. I've just not seen enough of Potter's team show enough backbone recently. I just don't think they've got it. So I still think
Sunderland. Phil, just to point out, Sunderland have spent the back the manager, and they've spent a lot of money for a promoted team.
I'm devastated. They got Granit Xhaka. I can't believe Arsenal didn't bring him back. Honestly, that last season for us, he was an absolute hero. So
I'm gonna have to try against that derby, Dave.
It's
imagine Xhaka, Joelinton, and Bruno all going at each other. We said nothing the first 10 minutes.
I'm going to say that someone's seeing red.
Tottenham and Burnley. I went 1-0 Tottenham. Phil, you went 3-0 to Burnley. And Nathan, you went 3-0 Tottenham. You guys want to touch on that?
Well, I'm sure.
Is that your wild card this weekend?
I'm sure you want me to be sensible with this prediction. I did say, didn't I? I think I'm predicting 3-0 against Tottenham in every match this season. But I am torn because as ever, I say, I'm a huge Thomas Frank fan. In all seriousness, if I was going to do a serious prediction, I'd think Tottenham will have too much for Burnley. I think Tottenham will win 2-0. I'd love to see Tottenham get turned over in the first game of the season. Like I say, I'm torn these days. I want to see Tottenham done over because it's Tottenham, but I genuinely love Thomas Frank and I don't want to see him go under. So let's put my serious hat on. I think Tottenham will have too much for Burnley, and I think Tottenham will win 2-0. But I don't see Burnley scoring away from home again. I think the defence looks good. And obviously they beat Arsenal pre-season, didn't they? So
Burnley just got themselves a nice signing in ManGuard Rovers from Newcastle.
Good goalkeeper, experience.
I'd rather have Salt Pope than Dubravka, but we'll touch on that in a future video.
I actually think that Burnley have got not a bad squad, to be fair. I mean, they've just signed the 2 lads from Chelsea, that Brozier as well. He's been on loan. He's a bit of a nuisance, isn't he? So, like I said, I don't know too much about Burnley. I think if it had been at Turf Moor, I might have had a different opinion. I might have seriously had a different opinion. But at Tottenham, I don't see him getting beat. I don't see Spurs.
Tottenham have got all that space to play into. They've got the massive pitch to make the most of it. Thomas Frank's first home game. I just think Burnley,
very good players still, don't they? I know that the season wasn't great last season, but I'm with you, Phil. I mean, I like Thomas Frank. I think he's a very good coach, and I do think he improves the team that he's got. It's obviously it's a shame. Obviously, Maddison's out because he's going to miss all of next. He's not going to be in the England squad or would have been sniffing around because I think he had a good chance.
It's a shame for the lad.
But they have, the big one for me is, I know you don't like Tottenham, Phil, but obviously losing Son Heung-min, like a player who, I know we didn't have the best of seasons, but I think consistently, he's been there.
There's a lot of leadership gone, isn't there?
He's been so it's going to be quite difficult.
He's probably gone at the right time, though. I think he's probably just gone over the peak, last year, and I think moving away to a slightly slower paced league will do him the world of good. But yeah, it's sad to see Son go, to be
10
fair.
years. It's 10. I mean, I can't believe it's been
He's had some
10
unbelievable moments. Maybe we'll touch on them in a future
It'll be
video
interesting
again.
to see, to be fair. It'll be interesting because, like you touched on before, Sean, there's quite a lot of it's weird, isn't it? Like the season's about to kick off next week, but there's quite a lot of the transfer window left. And you think, well, Tottenham showed a lot of ambition by trying to get Gibbs White out of Nottingham Forest. They've now, by choice or whatever, they've moved Son on. They're now dealing with the Madison. They've got a lot of time to do business. It'll be interesting to see how ambitious they are because, I say going after Gibbs White was quite an ambitious play. So it'll be interesting to see if they move for someone else. To be fair, I was quite worried about it because, again, I'm a big fan of Jack Grealish. That I was quite worried they get Grealish in, to be honest. I think he had Tottenham player written all over him, particularly if you're letting Son Heung-min go. Well, you've let Son go, who played on the left. In my head, it was like, well, it's almost a no-brainer to bring Grealish into Spurs, isn't it? But I'm quite glad they didn't because I think they could have been a quite good marriage. But yeah, I think Tottenham at home have too much for Burnley.
So, Wolves City.
I think it's a Manchester City annihilation. To be honest, I think
we've gone for the same, haven't we?
They're going to want to make a massive statement, aren't they? On the back of last season, they've got all the new signings, and Wolves have pretty much been decimated in the transfer window. So I
predicted 3-1 City. Phil, you predicted City to win 5-1, and Nathan, I think you predicted 3-0 City.
Yeah, and don't change for me. I think City again have improved. They've got to see better performances, which I think they will. I think Wolves again, even though they're obviously Midlands rivals, they're in massive trouble this season, in my opinion. I think that they've been riding that crest of that wave for far too long now, and obviously losing Cunha's massive. They also lost that right back, that Semedo.
They lost 8 Nori to City, didn't they?
Yeah. 8 Nori. Who,
fantastic player.
I'm a big fan of 8 Nori. I think he's had like prime sort of games against Villa when they've turned us over because another one of our bogey teams. But yeah, they've lost the left back, the right back, one of the main sources of like distribution of goals. Not really replaced them. So to me, they are in massive trouble next season. I think it's going to be tough. But yeah, easy Man City win for me.
Okay. Nottingham Forest, Brentford. Forest at home. I went 1-0. Phil, 3-0. And Nathan, you went 2-1. All to Forest. We all happy with Forest taking in 3 points on the opening weekend?
Yeah, I think we all agree. Off the back of losing their manager, losing their captain, losing Mbeumo. Again, Brentford have been sorely decimated, haven't they? I think
this is going, isn't he? This is going.
And obviously now Gibbs White stayed as well, so I think Forest have too much for Brentford.
I wonder if that gun's still being held to Gibbs White's head.
Right, one of the most uncomfortable.
I don't think I've ever seen an interview in modern day football that's that weird. It's genuinely. If you've not seen it, guys, go and have a look at it. It's such an uncomfortable watch. It literally is like someone's got a gun to his head.
Mr. Marinakis about 6 times in the first minute.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, yeah. So onto the biggest talking point of the weekend. Then for Phil, it'll be Man United at home against Arsenal.
Arsenal demolition of Man United. That's what that's
so you put 3-1 originally. Sticking with that?
Yeah, I think I've been generous giving them 1, to be fair, but it's just Man United always just seem to just, they always want to put some sort of fly in our ointment. But as much as they've got all the flash and the showboat into these new signings, I just think we have too much for them. I just think, we've got the solid defence. We've improved the attack. I just don't think they can hold our attack. So, yeah, I'm comfortable to say Arsenal win. I'm absolutely sure something will go wrong because through the entire course of my life, visiting Old Trafford has always, ended up horribly. But we're going to go with an Arsenal win. You've got to believe in your team, haven't you? So Arsenal win. What did you two say?
I said 2-1 to your beloved Arsenal, and Nathan went 1-0 to Arsenal.
There you go. So at least we're clean sweeping.
It wouldn't surprise me if it ended in a draw, or like Phil says, it could be you could see Man United win.
The thing that cheers me up is the last few years, it's always been Rashford who's put the fly in the ointment. And as much as I don't think he's up to much, he's not there this time. So I'm hoping that's a good sign.
The thing is, first goal scorer at Arsenal 2-1. That'll be my bet this weekend.
Have you seen? There's a retweet going around, and it's brilliant reading. It's from an Arsenal fan from about 2.5 months ago when it looked like we were going to sign Sesko, and the tweet is. Sesko hat-trick first day of the season at Old Trafford. It's now being retweeted by all the Man United fans, obviously going, yeah, we agree, can't wait to see it. It better not backfire.
It's two strikers on show now that have come in for massive money. The spotlight's going to be on them, and they obviously Arsenal are going to be looking at Gyökeres to have this explosive form that he's had, sort of in Portugal. Then obviously they're looking at Sesko, who's obviously got the potential to be one of the best young strikers. So it'd be a good watch, actually. To be fair,
I'm looking forward to it as a neutral on Sunday. It's some good picks this weekend to watch. That'll be probably the key one for me. Then we've got Leeds and Everton.
What did we have it as?
I predicted Leeds 2, Everton 1. Phil, you went Everton 2, Leeds 1. And Nathan, you did 2-2 draw. Any changes there?
Maybe see Leeds pinching it. I think, obviously I've got family that are all big Leeds United fans, and they tell me that they've improved the squad from last season. I still personally think that they're still not quite there. But I think what Leeds do have is like the home sort of atmosphere and stuff is enough sometimes that can see you through results. And I think while ever they've got that, I think that they'll have, pick points up. And it could be the fact that it wouldn't surprise me if they did turn Everton over first game of the season. But yeah,
I'm going to stick with that. I think you're right. I think home. I think having been to Ellen Road as an away fan, the atmosphere going there. It's not maybe it puts the fear into the team potentially, but like you've touched on there, Dewsbury Hall and Grealish coming on board, and David Moyes again will want to put a marker down. I just think David Moyes is too wily for Daniel Farke. I just think Everton will have the tools. I think they'll have the tools to blunt the Leeds attack, and I think there's enough threat now. They've got Grealish on board, and that.
They've got Ilian and Dye as well, isn't he? He's a very good player. And then they've got this new lad from Villarreal, Barry or whatever.
That's the one. That's the name I couldn't remember. Yeah, I think I just think Everton will have enough, and then more kind of streetwise teams will have enough knowledge to kind of edge Leeds. I think, for me. But again, it's one of those which you wouldn't be shocked to see it go either way. But I think Everton have got enough.
Last but not least, we've got Chelsea and Palace. Could be a really interesting game now, to be fair. I went Chelsea 1, Palace 0. Phil, you've got Chelsea winning 4-1, and Nathan, you've got Chelsea winning 2-0. Any changes on that?
Having watched how Chelsea dismantled PSG in the Club World Cup, having seen them at the weekend win 4-1. They look really strong, and as much as Palace put up a good showing against Liverpool, I think Chelsea really look like they're ticking at the minute. I think they're going to have a really fast start. It's like they've enjoyed not having an off season. Do you know what I mean? They just really seem to be firing at the minute, and I just whether anybody leaves from Palace this week again might affect this potentially by the time the match happens. But I don't see Palace stopping them even if nobody leaves. I just think Chelsea look, and like you said, Nate, with home advantage on that match, I just think Chelsea will blow them away.
I think as well what I'm looking for take away from anything is I'm looking at obviously Cole Palmer more from the England perspective for the World Cup and everything, because I do believe Cole Palmer is a very, very he's an exceptional player in my opinion. I think the amount. I mean, I know Chelsea didn't have some of the results last season. I know his form wasn't as good as the season before, but I mean, I looked at him in that Club World Cup. I mean, he was.
Did you see him against PSG? He was
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
he was so good.
Something else, isn't it? He is something else.
Absolutely. My one of my picks, I'd say for Player of the Season next year as an early shout.
Yeah, I think he looks much more settled now. They've put some more skillful players around him. And to be fair to the two lads at the base of midfield, Caicedo and Enzo look much more settled than they did 6 months ago.
They're growing together, aren't they? That you can see.
It
didn't. It was, but then obviously you looked at the lad who's just come from Brighton, who's fitted straight in. Is it Pedro? João Pedro.
João Pedro.
He looks class.
He's just fitted in like there's no tomorrow, hasn't they? So, they've got that lad from Dortmund. Is it Gittins? Jamie Gittins. He looks decent. Trying to think who else. I mean, there's more players.
You probably can't keep. Well, they got Delap in from Ipswich, didn't they, as a striker? Then they got João Pedro instead.
But there's another one. Obviously, Delap. You know that he'll come in with the chances that he, like with Ipswich, you might have got 4 or 5 chances per game. With Chelsea, he's getting double that. So he's good. I think he beats his goal tally if he gets game time. It's how much game time he actually gets. So
it'll be interesting because again, as a Premier, he's big, he's strong, he's fast. As a defender, you don't want to, even if if João Pedro starts, you don't want to see Delap coming off with having not got any tiredness in his legs at 70th minute, because he's going to be causing you all sorts of heartache, isn't he? Yeah. So I think that like I say, Chelsea look dangerous at the minute. I think so. Yeah, I think Chelsea have too much for Palace. And I think Palace are also battling the emotion of winning the Community Shield, and then the emotion of this ridiculous decision by UEFA to not let them play in the Europa League. So they've had a bit of an emotional rollercoaster. And I get they're a few days away from the match, but they've had a bit of an emotional rollercoaster. But I think Chelsea at home will want to put a marker down to say, we're here. They'll want Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City paying attention.
I predict Chelsea will get off to a very, very strong start this season. That's one of my picks.
They look really dangerous.
Chelsea are, I do think, a dark horse this season. I really do. I think the signings they've brought in, and just the way the end is so strong. Like you said, Phil, the way that they went into the Club World Cup and just tore it apart, tore PSG apart. It's made a lot of people stand up and notice that I think Chelsea are back, and I do think they are potentially in this title race this year.
Yeah, and I think what I would say on the back of that performance as well against PSG is you can't, even though like we've probably said, before we've gone on to these live shows about the Club World Cup being, apart from being profitable, it's just another excuse for a tournament. I've said this, while you're in a tournament, you want to win it. That nature in you does it. I think, PSG wanted that just as much as what Chelsea did with the team that they put out as well. That was probably the strongest PSG team that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that probably won the Champions League. So that, they went strong as well. So, it ain't like it was a mixed, and uneven match teams where you've got Chelsea at full strength and PSG at not. These two teams went for it and Chelsea just absolutely dominated them. So,
yeah, definitely.
But it is, well, I think that we're well into stoppage time, so I think that almost brings us to the conclusion of tonight's show. We're going to have a little quick catch up before we disappear. But for everyone that has been watching, or anyone that's going to watch again later, thanks for the support. Like, share, and obviously spread the word.
Keep growing.
Subscribe to the channel. The more people that we get on board, the more this journey helps us grow ourselves. So it'd be great to get more people watching, and obviously please like, comment, and again subscribe. We're going to catch up briefly now, but until this time next week, take care and see you then,
guys. Go on, Arsenal.
Up the Villa.